Right now there's hardly a leader on earth with a bigger target on his back than Captain Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso. But it's not because he's cruel or ruthless, it's because he refuses to bow down. From the big halls of Washington to the shining streets of Paris, powerful players are desperate to see him gone. Even within his own borders, whispers of betrayal swirl. Political elites and hidden enemies, quietly plotting behind closed doors.
In a world already teetering on the edge of geopolitical upheaval, a new flashpoint just emerged deep in West Africa. Burkina Faso, a nation often overshadowed on the global stage, is now the site of a seismic military maneuver that's sending ripples across NATO headquarters and Western intelligence circles. 1,700 Russian commandos, armed, coordinated, and highly trained, have just touched down on Burkina soil. Not in secret, not covertly, but boldly, in broad daylight, under the eyes of the world. This isn't just another troop deployment. This is a statement, a challenge, a message from the Kremlin to Washington, Paris, and Brussels. Russia is not retreating from the global chessboard. It's expanding its reach into new territory.
Paranoia, it's survival. He knows what's coming, and he's getting ready. Look at the facts. Since he rose to power, Traoré has been living under a non-stop storm. Plots, threats, attacks. More than 15 assassination attempts in just 2 years. That's not politics anymore. That's war. He's not just fighting for a seat in government. He's fighting for an idea.
But why Burkina Faso? Why now? And what does this mean for the balance of power in Africa, a continent once dominated by French and American influence? Is this part of a new Cold War being fought under the radar, through military alliances, mineral access, and influence building in regions where Western power is fading fast? Today, we're unpacking the full scope of this unprecedented move, how it unfolded, what it signals, and why this may be the boldest geopolitical gamble Russia has made since Ukraine. This isn't just about troops on the ground. It's about influence, power projection, and global rivalry, and it's unfolding in real time. The deployment, 1,700 boots on Sahel ground. Russia didn't tiptoe into Burkina Faso. It marched in with unmistakable intent. In early 2025, 1,700 Russian commandos landed in the heart of West Africa. This wasn't a token security gesture or a group of diplomatic advisors quietly working from an embassy. These were seasoned special forces, deployed as part of the Kremlin's newly unveiled Africa Corps. A direct successor to the shadowy Wagner Group, this force now operates with the full legitimacy of Russia's Ministry of Defense. Gone are the days of plausible deniability. Russia is no longer hiding its ambitions.
An idea that says Burkina Faso's future should belong to its people, not to foreign investors, not to old colonial powers, not to anyone else. Some say this is just what happens with military rulers. But if that's true, why aren't the leaders of Gabon, Chad, Mali, or Niger facing this kind of constant danger? What's so different about Traoré? It's simple. He's not just another man in uniform, he's the heartbeat of a revolution.
The deployment was more than symbolic. It was a decisive, tactical move. A permanent military base was swiftly established in Lumbila, just outside Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou. High-tech drones patrol the skies. Armored vehicles navigate the surrounding terrain. Satellite communications link operations directly to Moscow's defense command. It was, by all accounts, a statement of intent. Russia is not just participating in Africa, it's planting a flag. But this move is not solely about counterterrorism, even if that's the official line. It's about influence. By entrenching itself in Burkina Faso, Russia is positioning to control the narrative and security dynamics of the wider Sahel region, a part of the continent long seen as unstable, but rich in strategic value and natural resources. This presence allows Moscow to expand its geopolitical reach while presenting itself as a powerful alternative to Western influence. In doing so, it hopes to reshape regional allegiances and signal that a new global power player is making its claim on African soil. Sahel's new brotherhood, the Alliance of Sahel States. Burkina Faso didn't make this move alone. It did so as part of a new brotherhood, the Alliance of Sahel States, AES. This isn't your typical African alliance built on vague principles. AES is a tight military pact between Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, three nations that have one thing in common: recent military coups that kicked out old regimes and told Western powers to pack their bags.
Three leaders united in their isolation. Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso have announced their withdrawal from ECOWAS. That was after the West African regional bloc suspended them, citing their recent military takeovers. The three nations signed a security agreement last year to come to each other's aid in case of armed rebellion or foreign intervention. On Saturday, they held their first meeting in Niger.
Our people have turned their backs irrevocably on ECOWAS. It's now up to us to create the Alliance of Sahel States Confederation, the AES. It's an alternative to any artificial regional grouping by building a sovereign community of peoples.
France, the region's old colonial overlord and longtime security partner, was told to leave. So were Western NGOs, intelligence assets, and counterinsurgency trainers. And in their place, Russian Commandos. AES isn't just military-minded. The group is building a shared economic and political framework. Plans for a new currency are underway. They're drawing borders, not to divide, but to consolidate. They see themselves as a counterbalance to ECOWAS, the traditional West African bloc now seen by these regimes as a Western puppet. In 2024, AES pulled the plug and officially left ECOWAS. This wasn't isolationism, it was insurgent regionalism. Their goal is simple: fight jihadists, unite under one strategic umbrella, and turn inward. But to do that, they need help. And they've made it clear. They believe that help now comes from the East. Why Russia? Why now? So why is Russia investing troops, intelligence, and hardware in a war-torn region thousands of miles from the Kremlin? The answer is layered. At its core, Russia's move into Burkina Faso is about more than just boots on the ground. It's a multi-layered strategy aimed at reshaping Africa's balance of power and Russia's global image.
Burkina Faso's leader, Ibrahim Traoré, recently survived a deadly assassination attempt. In response, Russian special forces have now landed in the country to protect him. But why would Russia get involved in such a high-stakes situation? Could they share a common enemy? Let's dive into it. Political tensions in Burkina Faso have hit a boiling point, with President Ibrahim Traoré facing direct threats to his leadership and life. A recently foiled coup attempt has exposed just how fragile the political climate truly is. To defend himself and his government, Traoré has made a bold move, inviting Russian commandos to help secure his administration.
First, it's about security optics. The Kremlin wants to position itself as a reliable global security provider, especially in areas where the US and Europe appear to be retreating. Since 2012, West Africa has become a battlefield for ISIS and Al-Qaeda affiliates, leading to widespread violence, displacement, and instability. Russia is seizing the opportunity to brand itself as the unwavering partner, unlike the West, which critics argue abandoned allies in places like Afghanistan. Second, it's about resources. Africa is rich in the minerals Russia needs. Niger houses some of the world's most strategic uranium mines, while Burkina Faso and Mali are flush with gold. As Western sanctions tighten around Russia's economy, African minerals offer both a vital economic lifeline and strategic leverage in global markets. Third, and perhaps most crucially, it's about geopolitics. This isn't just about Burkina Faso, it's a broader challenge to Western dominance. By embedding itself in the Sahel, Russia is sending a message. If the West won't lead here, we will. Moscow is actively working to rewrite the post-colonial story in Africa, placing itself, not Washington or Paris, at the center of the new narrative. This is the Kremlin's bid to reshape global influence, one African partnership at a time. The Africa Corps, Wagner's suit-wearing brother. You can't talk about this move without addressing the elephant in the room, Wagner. The Wagner Group was infamous for its operations in Syria, Libya, and various African countries, often accused of human rights abuses, economic exploitation, and shadowy coup involvement. But with the death of Yevgeny Prigozhin and Wagner's partial absorption by the Russian military, Moscow needed a new tool, one it could parade around in a suit, not hide in the shadows. That tool is Afrika Korps. Unlike Wagner, the Afrika Korps operates openly under Russia's Ministry of Defense. It's tasked with doing what Wagner did, but under official state sanction. That includes providing combat support, training local troops, setting up logistics hubs, and securing strategic infrastructure. In Burkina Faso, the Afrika Korps isn't a rumor, it's a fact. Their soldiers move with local forces, speak the language of security reform, and carry Russian-made hardware stamped with government serials. In short, it's Wagner, but rebranded, corporate, official, and with broader ambitions. The West's nightmare, losing ground in its own backyard. Let's not sugarcoat it. This deployment is a wake-up call for Washington, Paris, London, and Brussels. For decades, Western nations saw West Africa as their problem to fix. France deployed thousands of troops through Operation Barkhane. The US poured billions into counter-terror programs. NGOs set up shop, intelligence flowed. Military advisors trained local forces.
French troops arrived in Mali in 2013 after the Malian government asked for military assistance to help fend off a jihadist insurgency. The Barkhane Force was created not just to fight terror groups, but also to train national security forces. At the height of the mission, the number of French troops reached 5,100. At first, they helped slow down the advance of jihadist groups and secure large cities. But the areas to cover were vast. In following years, French troops and national armies were unable to stop terror organizations from expanding.
And now, Western embassies are quieter, some shuttered. Local governments are aligning their radios to Moscow, not Washington. For ECOWAS, the regional body backed by the West, the AES split is a major fracture. The bloc's authority is undermined. Its cohesion is in question. Worse, its ability to enforce democratic transitions or regional sanctions is being laughed off by juntas that now feel protected by a nuclear-backed superpower. The Global South is watching. African leaders, weary of Western lectures and slow aid pipelines, are eyeing the AES model. Could Russian backing offer them leverage too? The West might soon find itself competing, not just with China's checkbook, but Russia's soldiers. Beyond the battlefield, building a Russian Africa. Russia's play here isn't just military, it's ideological and economic.
A quick glance at the map of Russian influence in Africa leads to surprising conclusions. Despite being deeply entangled in the war with Ukraine and the proxy war with the West, Russia manages to skillfully expand its influence across the massive African continent, while simultaneously pushing out European and American influence. Moreover, even in Africa, direct clashes between Ukrainians and Russians are occurring. While this description is quite suggestive, it is, as usual in such matters, incomplete.
Local media in Burkina Faso has started airing pro-Russian content. Schools are beginning to offer Russian language courses. There are talks of Russian-backed infrastructure projects, rail lines, telecom expansion, even energy grids. This is how Russia builds soft power, on the back of hard power. You land troops, win a few battles against insurgents, and then you build roads, hospitals, universities, even local defense manufacturing. This is nation branding, Russian style. And if it sticks, we're looking at a permanent sphere of influence. Meanwhile, African youth, angry at colonial legacies and Western hypocrisy, are eating it up. In cities like Ouagadougou and Bamako, Russian flags fly during public demonstrations. Statues of old French generals are replaced with murals of Putin. Whether you see it as strategic genius or geopolitical manipulation, it's working. The risks, what could go wrong? While the prospect of deeper ties may seem promising, This operation carries significant risks for both Burkina Faso and Russia. For Burkina Faso, heavy reliance on a foreign power, no matter how it's labeled, can quickly slide into dependency. Russia is not a benevolent actor. The Kremlin will expect something in return, likely in the form of mineral rights, military footholds, or diplomatic alignment. Internally, not all Burkinabe citizens are convinced. Civil society groups, religious leaders, and opposition factions express concerns about national sovereignty and long-term consequences. Questions linger. Will Russian troops still be stationed there in 5 or 10 years? And at what cost to the nation's autonomy? From Russia's perspective, this is no easy win either.
So today we're unpacking a major development out of Burkina Faso. One that could have serious implications, not just for the country itself, but for Africa's evolving position in global politics. Just days after surviving a coup attempt, the nation's revolutionary leader, Ibrahim Traoré, has signed a significant new gold mining deal. The project is called the Nayu Gold Project, located in the Plateau Central region. And the mining rights have been awarded to Nordgold, a Russian-owned company with a growing footprint across Africa.
Maintaining an overseas military presence comes at a steep financial and logistical cost, especially while embroiled in the war in Ukraine. There's also the threat of reputational damage. Civilian casualties, failed operations, or reports of exploitation could rapidly erode support, both locally and internationally. A single blunder could derail years of diplomatic investment. If mismanaged, Russia's ambition to carve out influence in Africa, a so-called Russian Africa, might crumble as swiftly as the Wagner Group's once meteoric rise. Closing the circle, a message, loud and clear. So yes, this was more than a military deployment. This was a megaphone message to the West. Russia is here. Africa is listening. The future isn't unipolar anymore. It's also a message to the Sahel. You don't have to bow to Paris or Washington to fight your wars and build your nations. And whether you support it, fear it, or simply observe it, it's unfolding in real time. The landing of 1,700 Russian commandos in Burkina Faso in 2025 isn't a footnote in military history. It's a headline that signals a shift, one that could redraw maps, alliances, and the future of Africa's place in global power dynamics. 1,700 Russian commandos in a small West African nation may not sound like a global shift, but in the world of geopolitics, every move is a message, and this one is loud and clear. Burkina Faso, a former French colony, now finds itself at the center of a silent tug-of-war between East and West. With Western influence waning across the Sahel and Russia surging in through security deals, energy partnerships, and military assistance, a new frontier of confrontation is taking shape, not in Europe, not in Asia, but in Africa. The implications are staggering. Will the West respond? Will regional powers push back? Or is this the beginning of a broader realignment, one where Russia positions itself not just as a Eurasian power, but a global influencer with boots on the ground and eyes on Africa's future? One thing is certain. What happens next in Burkina Faso won't stay in Burkina Faso. This is a test for the West, a flex by the Kremlin, and a pivot point for Africa's future. If you're following the story behind the headlines, the quiet moves that shape the world, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Because history isn't just being written in Washington or Moscow, it's being written in Ouagadougou, and we'll be here to break it all down.